Hello, this is Ash Wednesday, and it's just a wee extra that we're throwing in online. I kind of thought I would do this because, well, it keeps us as a church focused. I've kind of been thinking about things because you do when you're in lockdown, and I think sometimes, when you hear things about COVID and people's views on when we'll get out of COVID and the schools, etc. Oh, it's so daunting. And I think for me, it appears nowadays that many people have a desire to share their thoughts and their feelings outwardly in comparison to the generation which I grew up in. And examples of this can be found on social media. And you just need to look at example of many Facebook pages or Instagram and Twitter accounts, and you will see someone who provides an unsolicited view or opinion on some topic that they're really not qualified at all to provide. Indeed, I always argue if you travel on any Glasgow bus or taxi, you'll come across someone who's only too willing to share their views on just about everything and anything from politics to the price of fuel to the price of cornflakes to the conspiracy theories of how a city council is run. I have a feeling that they all have a deep desire to express their views openly for those who are interested, or in some cases on public transport or in the back of a taxi, held hostage enough to have to be forced to listen to them. And in the Bible reading of today, Jesus is appearing about, I think he's talking about those who like to grandstand, showcase their faith, their outward expressions of faith. Their faith is paraded openly for all to see and all to hear. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that if it's done properly and done with sincerity. But he warns the disciples not to be like these hypocrites who like to show their faith by praying outdoors in front of everyone in order to impress people with their faithfulness and by their actions. But it could also well be that their prayers are empty and without any sort of meaning. And I think that we can all be guilty of that at times too, of praying long, elaborate prayers during church services with perhaps the intent, I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair, but perhaps with the intent to impress upon others or to impress others their skills at being able to do prayers without written notes or whatever by these lengthy prayers that end up demonstrating what we perceive as their piety. But quite often, sometimes their actions betray their meditations. I've known of people who were earnest prayers and they would take 10 minutes to do a prayer of thanksgiving or a prayer of intercession, a prayer for other people, and they wouldn't be people that I would like to associate with, but that's just me personally. And I found that it was the same with people I knew who were extremely wealthy. They would make big donations to charities or to some charitable cause. And then they would go on to share with all and sundry their actions. And the ones that I knew often done it for tax cuts. Perhaps again I'm being unfair. I often think of those who like to fast as well, and then they tell everybody they're fasting. I've given up chocolate for Lent, or I've given up alcohol for Lent, or I've given up eating fatty foods or carbohydrates or whatever. I think in some ways, when you're boasting about that, when you're standing praying for everybody to see, you're defeating the purpose of what we're supposed to be doing. But this is just my personal view. When people do that, I think they're doing it for show, for effect. It's a public expression about their willingness to promote themselves, to add a voice, to add a view, as if it's on their Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter account. And I think it sometimes leaves their faith, questions their faith, because I think those people who go about quietly, unassumingly, and humbly about their good works and their charitable efforts and their faithful praying without telling everybody about it, I'm more akin to that kind of person. But today is the beginning of Lent, and as many people will celebrate Ash Wednesday today. Now, under normal circumstances, many in the Roman Catholic Church would attend their parish churches and have ash put upon their foreheads. For some, this is an outward display of their faith. For others, it's a sign of repentance. But either way, it's visible for all to see. You can't get more visible than an ash mark placed upon your forehead when there's not normally one there. But our preferred way in the Reformed and in their congregational tradition is that the churches would quietly approach the Lord to display our faith as a personal and private affair. And perhaps at times we can be accused of being too private, too impersonal, particularly here in Scotland. And until recent times, Congregationalists such as Knightswood would have never normally have celebrated Ash Wednesday, let alone follow the season of Lent. That was reserved for Anglicans, Roman Catholics and the Episcopalians. But today being Ash Wednesday, it's also the beginning of Lent. And for the next 6 weeks, Christians will begin rituals in preparation for Easter morning, the resurrection of Jesus when he rose from the tomb, having been crucified on the cross on Good Friday. We are looking forward to Easter. So I've got a couple of questions to ask you, just for you to ponder on, to leave you with. Do you intend to follow Lent? And if so, can I then suggest that starting from this Sunday, for the next 40 days, that you offer up prayers to God? And don't forget, when you're asking for things, take time to give payback by giving thanks for things that mean most in your life, things that you've taken for granted, people you've taken for granted. Now, some people say to me, well, what do I do for prayer? How do I do it? And there are numerous ways. It can be short, as long as you want, but it should be earnest. People ask for guidance how to pray. Well, can I show you? I've shown this to kids before. Start with putting your hands together because you're clasping a secret. You can do it that way, but I want you to do it this way. Hands together. With your small pinky fingers, you're praying for the weakest and the smallest and the most vulnerable in society. With your wedding finger, the wedding ring finger, you're praying for the love of the nation, the love of the world, the love of Christ, the love that you have for your neighbour, your family and your friends. With the strong finger, this index finger, pray for the strength and wisdom of governments, those who have power over others. With your pointer finger, pray for those closest to you and those that you would normally point out at people and think, I don't really want to be associated with them. Because sometimes you have to point that finger at yourself and look at your own imperfections. And finally, with the thumb, nearest to you, pray for yourself. Pray for forgiveness. For the things that you do wrong in life, for when you know you've done wrong in life. Pray for yourself. Always give time for yourself. Bring them all together and give thanks to God. And my advice is, don't tell anybody about it. Just do it. Peace be with you all at this time. Amen.